Next is to approve the Oklahoma City Airport Trust budget for the fiscal year 2019. Mr. Kranenburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, and good morning, everyone. Last month, we asked you to receive the budget, and before I ask you to approve the budget this morning, I would like to do a brief presentation for our fiscal year 2019 budget, which begins on July the 1st. So if you look at the comparison of the budget to last year, you'll see that the proposed budget next year is $132,059,000, and that represents a $42,469,000 increase from last year's or this year's budget. Also, that's all related to capital expenditures that we're planning to make. We do have some projections in next year's budget. Our revenues are projected to be $5 million more than this year, and our expenses are actually projected to be $500,000 less. To look at the airport's sources of funds, we are anticipating total airport charges to our tenants and users of $61,547,000. To cover the major categories, building rents, this is derived from payments, lease rates for the terminal building and other buildings and hangars that the airport trust owns. We also have landing fees, which represent a calculated rate per 1,000 pounds of landed weight that's charged to our passengers and freight carriers. We have parking revenues related to our public parking facilities. We have over 7,200 parking spaces, and that's for our garages and surface lots. Concession revenues are derived from the food and beverage, retail, and rental car commissions. We have fuel sales that are charged on a rate per gallon for all fuel retailed on the airport, and through those leases that have self-fueling privileges. The customer facility charges is the user fee that is the transaction on rental car transactions, which pays for the debt for the rental car center, also the operations and maintenance of the facility and the buses, and then a variety of other airport charges that represents leasing components for maintenance reimbursements, ground rentals, and apron fees. Excuse me. We have other revenue that's projected of $18,106,000. We have oil and gas revenues, which we use as matching grants for our federal funds when we have FAA projects to maintain our airfield on Wiley Post and Clarence Page Airport, as well as Will Rogers. We have interest on our money market account. The passenger facility charges is the user fee that supports our capital program. And then we have federal and state participation for eligible airfield and equipment projects. These are in the form of grants from the Federal Aviation Administration and the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission. We also are anticipating $30,182,000 in carryover. This is from the project fund and also includes the Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center escrow account. And then anticipating bond proceeds of $22,224,000, and this is funds intended to be used on construction. If you look at the uses of funds, we're projecting expenditures of $45,435,000. We have other services and fees, which is representative of our major contracts, such as the parking management contract, our janitorial contract, firefighting and security contract. Commodities represents various services and supplies. Debt requirements is prior financing debt for the terminal renovation that was completed in 2006, as well as the last parking garage constructed and the recently constructed rental car center. And the transfer to the cash fund is the department's operating account. We have $2,810,000 on funds estimated that we will receive in 2019 to be used on future capital. And then you see the significant capital outlay of $83,814,000. Want to talk about some of the completed projects that we did this year. The parking revenue and control system upgrade is a new system that replaced our outdated and obsolete system. We replaced all of the infrastructure in our garages and our surface lots. This new system provides network connections to all of our parking facilities, and it provides amenities such as pay-on-foot kiosk, space-by-space counts in Garage B, lights in Garage B, and the renovated toll plaza. We had a small project on the terminal apron where the pavement was deteriorating. This is in the vicinity of Taxiway Kilo. And we had a major improvement to Taxiway Golf. This was a 1,500-foot extension. And when you look at the map, I just want to show you what the significance of this is. Taxiway G is our east-west taxiway that goes completely across the airfield. what we've done is extended 1,500 feet into Lariat Landing, and this provides us the opportunity to open up about 160 acres for future aeronautical development and allows for large tract parcels such as 30 to 60 acres to be available. We also completed a project at Wiley Post Airport. The Phase 3 project to our airfield improvements was a reconstruction of the pavement for parallel taxiway Alpha to our main runway, and we also replaced some airfield lights and signage as well as some lights and signage on taxiway B. We completed almost $15 million of projects at the Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center. As you know, Mike Monroney is our largest tenant. They lease 1,000 acres, and we have about 32 buildings we maintain over there. And as the landlord, we're responsible for certain aspects of our buildings, such as the building exterior, structural, roof, pavements, mechanical systems, and various other infrastructure. As we talk about some of the ongoing and new projects, later this year, we'll be doing the garage wayfinding project. This is where we'll be installing new signage in both the 5-story garages, and we'll also be creating new signage at each garage entrance that will have a component that will provide real-time updates as to the spaces that are available for each level. We're also planning to do a upper-level deck structural repair. And more specifically, this is the outside the ticket counter and the bridge deck of the terminal building. We're planning to replace some structural connections, repair some delaminated areas, apply coating to improve the wearing surface, and also apply a protective coating for the structural members. Garage A waterproofing. So you remember a couple of years ago we brought this project to you, and I will tell you we've had a dickens of a time trying to joint seal and waterproof the 2-story garage. This is also the area where our preferred parking will be established, and I will tell you that we attempted to perform a simple joint sealing project, and we ended up just needing to do a more extensive solution to prevent the water from protruding through the expansion and control joints, and we have that significant engineering underway. In fact, that project is out to bid, and we will get bids on this project next week. The terminal expansion, as you are aware, the design is complete, and we're out for a final estimate right now with our consultant. To remind you of the goals of the terminal expansion, it's to create the first phase of an east concourse eventually that will have 9 gates. Here you see a rendering of the facility since we've got it designed. We'll have 4 new gates initially, 3 with airline lease gates, and then 1 will be an airport gate that will allow us to position ourselves for future international traffic and also be able to handle divert aircraft that we sometimes have to deplane aircraft into the terminal. This project will also create a new consolidated 8-lane security checkpoint. We'll be doing away with the existing checkpoints that we have today and creating large meter greeter lobbies in those locations. We'll have much improved and increased public circulation areas, and we'll be adding new concessions. We're also about to complete the maintenance facility at Wiley Post Airport, which is a new office and maintenance bays, badly needed. Also, airfield improvements, Phase 4 Sequence 1 project. This is about a $500,000 project to continue to improve the lights and signage on taxiway Alpha 5 and taxiway Alpha 8. At Wiley Post Airport, we're also doing a master plan. This is an FAA-required document that has to be done at all of our airports every 5 years, and it has certain elements where we evaluate our existing facilities. We conduct aviation forecast for the future, do some capacity analysis to determine facility requirements, and we develop a short-term, intermediate-term, and long-term capital program. At Mike Monroney, which is a very large line of business for us, we'll be anticipating building improvements of over $23.5 million, and other various improvements of over $9.5 million. And I went through some of the areas before as to our categories that we maintain over there. And looking at the summary of the capital program, you see how it's broken out by airport and our line of business with Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center. Just to look at the table to cover how all of these funds kind of gel to get to $83,814,000. We have grants we're anticipating from the FAA and the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission of $9,163,000. Our PFC revenues will support the terminal expansion. We have tenant maintenance funds. This is the Mike Monroney escrow account that I mentioned before. We also each year contribute a certain amount of the airport trust revenues from operations towards capital expenditures. And then we have $4,030,000 that's related to the rental car center, and that totals $83,814,000. If you look at the department operating account, you see how it's broken out, $18,885,000, and this is the broken out by line of business. And then the summary of our changes for this next year, we have an increase in insurance, benefits, and salaries, $462,000. We have a slight increase in city-provided services. New positions this year, we have several. We're asking for civil engineer two to handle the increased HVAC and mechanical projects that we're already doing and have identified for the next several years at the Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center. We're adding a revenue auditor. Each year, the Airport Trust gets about $80 million in revenues from our 500 leases, and 50% of those revenues are self-reporting by the tenants. We also have other self-reporting requirements that the tenants provide to us. We need to have better oversight over all of those compliance requirements. This position will also save about $45,000 each year that we typically spend on outside consultants to review a couple of specialty areas with our leases. We also have a lot of GADSB requirements that have changed over the years, and so recently there was a ruling by GADSB that we have a lot of requirements with our leases that we have to count each lease, and I mentioned I had about 500 of them as receivable. So we have to account for those revenues for the term of the lease, and those can be as long as 40 years. We're adding a system support specialist 2 position because of bringing the parking and revenue control system in-house. Remember, it's all IT connected. A lot of hands-on there that we didn't have before. And all of the CCTV cameras, we have about 500 at Will Rogers World Airport that now our contracts for the installation and maintenance of all those cameras has gone away, and we're bringing that in-house as well with our staff. Unit operations supervisor to oversee the maintenance section at Wiley Post Airport, and a horticulture worker 2 and 2 grounds maintenance operators at Will Rogers. We're not able to keep up with our groundskeeping. Our leading for results targets show that we're really meeting 50%. In the last few years, we've got a lot of areas that we've created that needs more landscaping, mowing, and irrigation, such as the new rental car center. That's about a 40-acre site that's taken a lot of my staff's time. Portland Avenue now is now complete, as you know, and we're trying to make that look as nice as possible, including the right-of-way. So those are my changes for next year, and a very positive budget. Positive activity, and be happy to answer any questions. Request your approval.
Questions from the trustees? David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not necessarily any questions, but just some comments. First of all, as a user or a customer of the airport, the improvements that you've made to the parking garages, especially those lights showing unused spaces, has really been a tremendous addition to the parking arrangements. And then the improvements in exiting and paying for your parking. I just don't see the lines backing up like I've seen in the past. So those have been great improvements. And then the portion of the capital expenditures, over $30 million, being contributed to the Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center. That is such an important component to the airport and to Oklahoma City. We benefit so greatly having all those air traffic controllers coming in and all the other employees. It's a very strong economic component to our community, and unfortunately not too many people are aware of that. So, and I know many cities would love to have that center in their location. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question. So you mentioned the preferred parking. Could you give us a brief status of where that stands?
As I mentioned, the project's out for bid now, and I think we open bids on May 30th, John. And once we get the bids in, we'll review those. When we approve or award that contract, they are anticipating, I believe, a 5-month construction period. And so we're hoping to have that project done before the end of this year, or right about the end of this year, and we'll be opening up the preferred parking, which was the plan that we presented some time ago to you. So,
Are we a little bit behind on our original estimate of when that would be functional?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. That was a memory test for me. Any other comments or questions from the trustees? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Second. We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Please cast your votes. And it is approved.